Actually, nah, I don't vibe with that shit.
Yeah, it gets a little dicey when you when you get around there.
No, I saw that because I made the exact same mistake, and I was just like, I say Wignan all the time because I swear to God, I've seen them call each other that.
Yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm dead naming people's ideologies or whatever.
You're using the wrong pronouns.
I could have sworn I seen that, and like I said that, and Keith corrected me, and it was very like, yeah. I mean, I like Keith because he's all out there. He lets it hang out. He doesn't.
I do like that about him. I can't say that I vibe with his politics too much, but he has he doesn't hide like literally anything. Like he puts it all out on the table for you, which you got to appreciate to some degree.
Yeah. I don't like people.
When we actually talked with him, I actually vibed with a lot of his politics when we talked with him until he'd be like that one thing, and you're like, never mind.
Yeah, I listened. I listened to the episode. Like, I thought it was good. I actually didn't even know who he was at the time, but like, I had no idea. Like, just randomly in the middle of the podcast, all of a sudden he was like, "Yeah." And there's like a Jewish element to this too, but I know your audience isn't crazy about that. And I was like, oh, like, okay, I see.
We were like, all right, crickets, let's move past that.
Yeah. Let's try and move to something new.
He knew that we weren't on that. He kind of said it kind of like, apprehensively, but he knew we weren't on that.
Yeah.
And we just moved past it because it's like, all right, what are we're going to debate this? I don't think we're going to debate this. There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to start debating the JQ or whatever on the pod. Like,
yeah, I mean, we attempted that with the Rin interview, and I don't even think that went very well. So I don't think that's something we're interested in. It's much better to have conversations that you don't fixate on what your like antagonizations are, and you actually just fixate on like what you see eye to eye on a little bit more and try to delve into that area. Because I think you find you can have real productive conversations even with people with conflicting ideologies if you stick to that program.
For sure.
I feel like everyone wants to get caught up on just what they disagree on.
He was meeting us halfway for sure. He was, as the right would say, he was hiding his power levels.
Yeah.
He was trying to meet us halfway, which, I appreciate that. It was, I agreed with a lot of what he said, but
yeah, for sure.
We're naming a different beast or whatever, but
it's the same thing with the buck breaking documentary.
No, a lot of Wignats like line up with what Tariq Nasheed says. They kind of like it because he's very nationalist. He's very like race based and all that, and there's a lot of alignment. But then the whole black versus white thing, then it kind of falls apart.
Yeah. I saw that there's some, I don't know if he's a new guy or whatever, but it seems like there's like a Tariq Nasheed rival now, that like that guy that did that like the transphobic spaces last night or whatever that like everyone was in. Like I think I heard there's some kind of beef with that guy and Tariq, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, a rival.
Turf war.
Yeah, maybe some kind of turf war. I don't know if like, I think the other guy was like, dude, let me try and pull it up. I honestly can't remember his name. Like there was like a 10,000 people spaces last night. I just like some transphobic shit or whatever. And
Sano just saw transphobic. He's like, I'm pulling up. I'm
I pulled up because the homie Basil was in there, and I was like, I think he had speaking privileges at some point. So I was like, I have to see like what's going on.
Yeah, no, like, Basil's the one that heard. Oh wait, transphobia. I'm gonna pull up.
Yo, if I'm hosting a transphobia spaces, I'm giving him speaking privileges. He needs that. He needs give it to him.
He's like the UN chancellor or something for transphobia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. The gays are about it.
I just got on Twitter this morning and I saw people talking about like, yo, this like massive chat was lit. And I saw a video that looked like just a bunch of little circles lighting up and then, like heart reacts and laugh reacts. And it made my brain hurt so bad. I was like, I'm not looking into that anymore.
Yeah, I've had like I can't really do the spaces, dude. Like I've joined a couple of them, and it's like you got like 12 people talking at the same time, and it's like I start getting like sensory overload or some shit. Like I'm like autistic or something. like
you're the DSA guy just standing up like
point of privilege.
It's like watching South Korean TV or something. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Why is there so much blinking shit?
Yeah, it's like our Discord just popping off, just like mad voices, mad schizo voices, multiple voices for one person. Yeah,
you're like, am I in here alone right now? What's going on?
Yeah. This is just inside my head.
I've never been in any of those spaces, but yeah, I mean,
I don't even think that my app has the functionality to do that, dude. I'm operating on a Brave browser on my laptop, and it doesn't even look like that's an option.
Based.
Yeah. That's funny.
No, but yeah, I mean, I really, I don't know. I didn't know it was an insult with them or whatever, but the
I truly was just like, yo, I don't want, like, you guys are doing your thing, like, I don't want any beef, like, I'll call you what you want, like.
Yeah, this is not going on the main episode. Obviously, we're gonna cut half of this for bonus or whatever. But
like, totally to Keith Wood's DMs.
Yeah. But I have to say, like, the whole like the just like the we don't call ourselves Wither. We don't tolerate. It's got like a very Hotep vibe of like Brother Malcolm. We don't call ourselves niggas. We don't do that.
Dude, literally.
That I kind of respect. Like, ironically.
Yeah, he's like, kings, bro. We was landowners.
Yeah, exactly. I'm self-deprecating king.
No, absolutely.
This is at Trustworthy Slav.
This is at Incognito, COH.
CRK, Black.com, pilled.
This is the Fed Post.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we sound very Twittery. I mean, we're trying to like not sound as Twittery, Slav and COH and I have been talking about that, like trying not to be as much. I don't know if we do though. It's hard to tell, but
I think we do, bro. I was listening to an episode for the first time in a long time, and I was like, "Fuck, what are we talking about?"
Yeah, the treats shit, especially.
Yeah, that's so what it
Twittery.
was.
That's super Twittery. Like, there's like that's why I had.
Yeah,
to, I was just in my head like, we got to stop talking about this.
Yeah, it's like you got to take so many steps back to even like start unpacking what that means to people that aren't like on Twitter all the time. Like, why are we talking about treats? Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Something no one in real life is like has so.
Yeah, well, like the content of the discussion, like the inflation and the supply line issues and stuff, that's all very real and tangible for normal people. But then once you start like getting into these more esoteric discussions that are just revolving about what one Twitter user's take was on the supply chain issues, then it gets a little bit like out of the realm of real life.
Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, the whole like supply chain discourse or whatever, like I feel like became soiled so quickly just by being filtered through purely just like Twitter users or whatever. Like, like it was like a day went by and it was like we already weren't even talking about the actual like supply chain anymore, and we have these like people that are talking about like, oh, like milk and meat are actually like non-essentials, like they actually are like technically treats, and it's like how do we fall this far in like 2 days since like fucking Chapo said the treats thing or whatever.
Yeah, it's hard not to talk about them because like it's like
trickle
the lockdowns never happened thing,
bro.
Yeah. It's like the lockdowns never happened thing. It's like, it's hard not to talk about it because it's so tempting just to be like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? But like,
and when you see how synchronized all the takes are, it's like something fucking weird is going on.
Like, otherworldly, bro. You're like, what am I a part of right now?
But it's really, if you think about it, it's not too Twittery because when the media was first talking about the supply chain thing, they had that picture of the ice cream, and they were like, we got supply chain issues, so you might not get all your favorite ice cream or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was
a way of like clouding it, of like, and the left basically said that, so it's not too Twittery. What we're talking in a Twittery context, but this is what the media actually said because they're kind of in a line with a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah,
no, dude. Yeah. I mean, like you had Jen Psaki or whatever saying, I forget what exactly it was, but like something about like, oh, like people aren't going to be able to get their treadmills or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like giving like it was like basically like the same thing everyone was saying online. It was just like kind of insane to see them both like pushing the same party line like so fast like that.
They all got the same memo.
Yeah, it's like the memo went out and like all of them were fucking just like on it right away. like no delay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like maybe the wording or the nuance is slightly different, but they're all sort of on the same page. Inflation isn't real or inflation is good. I'll see that in like, some news media outlet.
Bloomberg, bruh.
Yeah, I'll see that, and then I'll see some communists say it online. I'll be like, oh, so it's like, there's overlap. There's overlap where we're talking about the Twitter aspect, but they're just repeating what's.
No, it seems like a lot of these guys have shifted completely. Like nobody's really talking about the supply chain anymore. I think, except for I guess you have some of these people that are really into the whole like collapse narrative that's happening right now, like people like Malcolm and stuff, who I do really like. I probably don't fully sign on to the whole collapse thing that they're talking about or whatever, but like other than that, like
complete collapse, they believe it's coming, or
I think like Malcolm specifically, like he kind of seems to think that there's like a imminent, like I don't know if he thinks there's going to be like a civil war or like a lot of right wingers are kind of have these ideas about like some kind of civil war too. I guess I don't really like. I just haven't really even like thought of it. So I guess I'm not. I don't know. But
a lot of people are predicting a collapse, like final collapse or balkanization. That's like left and right. A lot of people are talking about that.
I think like for some of these guys, like the supply chain is like a part of that narrative. But like other than that, I haven't. It's kind of it seems like the discourse has shifted just to people talking about just purely like the inflation portion of it, and then like you're seeing all these people that are. There was like some blue check take that got ratioed insanely the other day, just about how like inflation like only affects like rich people or something like that. Just some like totally insane like
just actual backwards logic.
Yeah, like literally, it was just like whatever she was saying. The complete opposite was like the reality, right?
No, the reasoning was they're hoarding their wealth, so their wealth is devaluing. So inflation,
right.
is hurting this guy with a gazillion fucking dollars in an offshore account in a tax haven more than the person who has to, take out a microloan to buy milk or bread or whatever. Like it hurts them more.
Right,
or whatever.
yeah.
That's the argument.
Or like the person who just got a letter from National Grid or whatever saying they're going to get like a 50% price hike this winter or some shit like that. Like, it's not, it's just, these aren't, people with just like offshore assets or whatever. Just, these aren't the only people being hurt by this or whatever.
If we just hold on, we stand in the bread lines a little bit longer, we build some good solidarity, then we're going to break those motherfuckers, bro. Their banks can't outlast all of us. We can stay starving longer than they can stay solvent.
Exactly.
Yeah, the fucking, the gymnastics they do, it's like, there's obviously the best lies, like there's little truth to it. Yeah, obviously, the inflation is somewhat hurting their offshore accounts, obviously, but it's like, it compares nothing to this fucking Papa John's is talking about taking out loans for pizza.
Oh my God,
that was the most insane shit I've ever seen. I remember that fucking post. That fucked me up. I've been thinking about it since then. I was like, this is like such a horrible like symbol of where we're at right now.
Oh, it's wild.
And then I ordered Papa John's right after. It was so
this shit for 99 cents down. All right.
Yeah. What's the interest rate on this? Are you serious?
You're like, bro, if I pay this back by the end of the month, there's no interest at all.
Yeah, I'm building credit at Papa John's right now.
Oh my God.
No, man, I started seeing that. Like, I use this instrument and like music resale app. It's called a Reverb. And on there is where I saw that kind of payment system first. It was like, oh, you can pay for this like $12,000 bass guitar with like 6 easy payments, And I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. And then you start looking and you're on like, a vitamin store website. And they're like, yeah, you can get your vitamin B for like 14 payments of $199. And you're like, whoa, what are we doing here, bro?
When you start looking through like the other places you can finance at, because I've actually also financed on that website before. I literally like put myself into poverty like during peak COVID by like buying a bunch of recording gear from Reverb and like putting it on that payment plan.
Fucking thing, bro.
It was funny. I was so fucking broke. I had to start like selling shit, and then finally like the unemployment hit, and I was just like immediately lifted out of poverty. It was so sick.
I feel like that's what happened for a lot of people, bro. The unemployment lifting people out of poverty, maybe for like the first time in their lives, actually, too.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, definitely. And for people who probably needed it a lot more than I did too, like that shit was, a lot of us were making fucking more than we've ever made before, which is cool.
Yeah, I was making way more than I'd ever made before. I was like, all right, I'll keep this shit coming for a little while. Why not?
Yeah, it was insane. Like I went from being broke to like starting to like stack some savings. It was like, it was just so weird.
And savings are like completely unheard of in modern American society. What is it?
Basically, yeah.
Only like, like 10, 15% of people actually have any savings or whatever.
Yeah, I forget the stat that always goes around. It's like however many percent of people typically can't afford like a $500 like emergency sort of situation.
Yeah, they recommend like 6 months emergency savings, and like nobody has that. Like literally no one has it.
54% of U.S. Workers or consumers are living paycheck to paycheck, with 21% of the population struggling to pay necessary bills, is what it says.
Yeah, and that's paycheck to paycheck and missing bills, right. And there's more. I think it's even higher for just like you can cover your bills, but you don't even have savings or whatever. But this is like part of the whole thing of like that, like the microfinancing or whatever. Like I remember there's a lot of apps or whatever, like you buying stuff and these little ads pop up and they're like, hey, you want to like, we give you the option to like split this payment up or whatever into 12 payments or whatever. Like these little like finance things or whatever. I mean, this shit happened before. This was in the 20s. Like this shit happened. They're like, oh, we can like, you can finance your fridge or all these appliances, newfangled appliances or whatever in the roaring 20s or whatever. Like this shit happened before. It's nothing new.
That's when they invented credit cards and shit. They're like, let's just run it.
Yeah. And then we saw what happened right after that. Like a decade after that. Yeah.
I mean, fuck. Hopefully that's not where we're heading. But I guess. Sorry. Go ahead. Oh no, I lost my train of thought a little bit. Go ahead.
No, I just, it's just a sign of like people can't afford shit, and like all this fake money is being printed and just handed out to people, and things are just expensive, and it's just like take out this micro loan for all this shit that you need or whatever.
Right.
It's just it's all just obviously hyper financialized.
I mean, obviously this taps into like how absurd the way people have been talking about, all the inflation and like shortages and price increases and shit. Because like, people are talking about this like it's just like I'm sure you guys all saw on Twitter, like had just this like hyper focus on like milk not being on the shelf or whatever and like stuff like that. But that's such like a tiny little picture of like the bigger picture of what's going on. Like for milk to be like gone from the shelves in the grocery store, there's like so many different things in the supply chain like before that like had to have gone wrong for that to happen. And it's just like really, it's really frustrating the way that these are just treated like it's like these are really like minor issues that don't matter, when like we already have all these people that live like with their finances like down to the dollar. And
I mean,
like
milk, bread, and eggs is literally like a stereotypical like staple food. Like it's like a cliche to say milk, bread, and eggs or whatever. And like for them to do that like with the milk thing or whatever, I mean, they'll do it with if it were bread or whatever, they would just be like, oh, you know how many carbs are in that? You're trying to get fat or whatever. Like it doesn't matter what it is, because like they'll always come up with a reason for why, and this is what the I always say is like the welfare queen shit from like the neocons or whatever. It's the same shit. It's like, oh, all this shit that you're taking, whatever, you don't really need that. You're there is no poverty, basically. That's the whole thing of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these people kind of like they like individualize it, right? Like they make it seem like it's kind of like a personal shortcoming, like, oh, you're not budgeting your money right, or like you're not fucking doing this or that right. And it's like that's obviously not really like it's not really anyone's individual fault that fucking like the prices of things are getting more and more expensive. And it's like, we like people just want to like, I guess, like laugh at people that, are actually affected by like minor increases in the prices of these staples and shit. It's like, it's really frustrating. It's obviously really indicative of like the class status of a lot of these, people that are engaging in this sort of stuff.
A lot of people try to like pride themselves these days on like being empathetic or being an empath or whatever. But in reality, we're living in like one of the coldest societies of like human history right now, where people are just looking at people starving and struggling to put food on the table and being like, LOL, you're not getting your fucking treats, dude. Yeah. Like, I don't even know. It's really sad to see.
It's insane. Like I feel like I'm used to these people being kind of sadistic in this way at this point, but like that still took me by surprise a little bit. I was like, damn, like, You guys are really just gonna like fucking make a huge joke out of this? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just baseline necessities. Like you were saying with bread earlier, Sierra K being a basic grocery list thing. I mean, that's literally what they give to like prisoners in third world countries, like bread and broth, like just enough to keep you alive. And yet that stuff that it's like maybe not going to be there. And then you have stuff like the fucking White House. Like if y'all remember back in July, I remember the 4th of July, they put out a thing and they were like, this year's 4th of July meal or whatever is going to be like 25 cents less for your cooking out stuff.
Right.
And then now this year we come like 4 months later and it's now Thanksgiving and I'm reading online 8 to 16 pound frozen turkeys were selling for $141 a pound this year, up from $115 the year before, which is a 22% increase.
Yeah, that's huge.
And then you have the White House tweeting out, well, don't worry. You can see the shelves are full today on Thanksgiving. And you're like, yeah, motherfucker, because people can't afford the goddamn stuff on the shelves.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
No, but this is culture war stuff. There's nothing class related about this. This is culture war. And, you shouldn't be eating turkey anyways because it's racist or whatever on stolen land or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, all Americans, they're so fucking fat, dude. Like, they just they should be eating vegan instead. They should be eating kale and fucking... man.
That argument is so wild to me because it's literally like the neocons and the leftists are making the same fucking argument. Like they say everybody's fat, nobody's starving here. Like they say this stuff. Like they, it's like literally Jack said this. He was on the show and he said that like nobody's starving here, everybody's fat. Like they're making the same exact arguments. Like they believe the same thing. Like how could you be fat? How could you be starving? It's like poor people eat fucking garbage food so they get fat. Like, what's so complicated about that?
Getting
like,
a fuckload of empty calories because they're not getting the actual nutrients that they're looking for when they eat. So they keep eating, or they're eating stuff that's just not going to have anything good for them in the first place. That's going to clog up their fucking natural digestive systems and the way that their body gets rid of fat in the first place and slow down all those cycles.
Yeah, we're not in Victorian eras where like rich people are fat or whatever. We're in a time now where rich people are skinny. They got lipo or whatever, and it's like a status symbol or whatever. If you're poor, you're fucking on that fucking motorized wheelchair or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's what it is now. Yeah. That's how it is in this year. Like,
bro. I mean, I live in a place where the only grocery store I can walk to, like the actual supply of produce there is basically just frozen stuff. They have like some ground beef and some stuff like that, but they don't have like hardly any vegetables, not really any fruit besides bananas, stuff you might find at your 7-Eleven.
Right.
But then they have, an endless supply of fruit roll-ups and like, what is it? Those I'm thinking about Fruit Loops. Yeah, Fruit Loops and like ice cream and shit. That's just like wall to wall in there. Shit that's not healthy for you, but you can afford. That's all in there because what it does is it gives us the illusion of having food, and you can keep eating and keep subsisting, but really you're not actually getting the real nutrients that you need. And then people are like, oh, well, these people are just buying the wrong stuff. I mean, how hard is it to go in and get beans and get chicken and rice or whatever? Well, it's like, yeah, beans and chicken and rice also isn't enough for like a well-balanced diet. You also need magnesium and other shit that you get out of greens and that you get out of produce. Yeah,
I mean, plus like a lot of these people. A lot of people live in like, what's the term? Like food deserts, right?
Yeah,
where like, the amount of like you're actually really limited with the amount of like healthy food that you can buy. And it probably is like a bit more expensive than just buying like junk, especially the way like I know like the US has some sort of like subsidy on like corn. So like everything is made with fucking like corn and corn syrup and shit. Yep. And like, so all this cheap food or all this unhealthy food rather is like, some of the cheapest stuff you can get. So like, it's like, it's pretty retarded to think that like people being fat is like necessarily just like gluttony. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that's definitely, that's not the case at all. Like some people literally can only afford to eat just like fucking garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cheaper because they mass produce it and they can like, it's just
quicker
cheaper to make.
It's quicker too. Yeah. So like if you're a working parent, you get home, it's a lot easier to get something out of the fridge or the freezer, like some frozen Tyson nuggets or some shit like that, and throw it into the oven and heat it up or microwave it, than it is to like dress meat, clean off vegetables and produce, like cook those in some way that's going to taste good, that's going to be appetizing for kids.
Yeah, it's the same thing with all the hedonistic shit.
I mean,
like,
there's only
empty calories. It's like, you give these people like little quick releases and it's cheap and they'll take it because like what else is there? It's just bleak everywhere else. And that's why they're like, oh, in the third world, like why are these people have like a radio or a TV or a stove? How could they be, you know, how poor are they really? That's the neocon thing. It's like, you know, they make all the you know, it's like what COH said about the cereal, whatever. They make all the pleasures and the trinkets cheap, but all the necessities, that's harder to get at. That's more expensive because you need it. And they just trade it out and then it's easy. Then you got people just, you know, addicts just coming back for this cheap fix or whatever. And, you know, they blame you for it. Then when you're doing it, they're like, oh, look at you. You're like, you're privileged. You got all this stuff. You got all these fancy things. But they took everything else out from under you. So like, you know, that's the bait and switch that they do. They've always done that. But
absolutely,
I mean, the left just, you know, I think it was a golden moment. I think it was a golden moment because they really just outed themselves in this whole thing. It's like they didn't have to say anything.
Yeah, no, totally. Really, I mean, I think the comparison to like neocons is honestly it's pretty good because they really are like it really does have parallels to the whole like welfare queen idea where it's just like, oh, these, you know, it's kind of like the idea that these people aren't. It's just like a series of individual like faults or errors of their own rather. And it's not like, you know, there's no larger like systemic thing happening here or whatever that is, you know, exacerbating these problems. It's just like people look at this shit through this purely like individual lens. And it's like, yeah, it's the same shit from the leftists and the neocons right now.
It's because they're all liberals and they're all doing liberalism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. That's literally why fucking Bush people and like Biden people and Marxists were like on the same side behind Biden. It's literally it. It's because they're all in the same shit. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
But
I was just reading some articles. I don't really read a lot of news. I like as a point of focus, I try to stay away from it just because it's like
keep the brain
it's
clean.
Just garbage. And yeah, I'm just trying to keep the brain like operating on, you know, good oil and not just like super dirty oil. But I was just reading articles and like, man, it's wild. So obviously we all know about like the Dollar Tree thing, right? Like they're raising their thing from $1 to $1.25 to keep up with inflation. Do we see that?
Oh,
that was something that was,
yeah.
I saw that was trending on Twitter. So the Dollar Tree is changing I'm not sure if they're changing their name or if they're just changing their byline, but the Dollar Tree is no longer going to be a dollar store. It's now $1.25 store.
Mm-hmm.
So like when the fucking Dollar Tree is outpacing inflation or like going up 25 cents, that's a real problem. Like when something that is already dirt cheap and has been for decades, I don't even know how long a Dollar Tree has been open, probably for 20 years.
I love this because they frame this as sort of like the left frames this as like this is the neocon like a Republican concern about inflation inherently or whatever, you know, or debt or whatever, like these that's how it's framed. And they say like, oh, but you don't care about the wages. You don't care about why our workers aren't getting enough wages. You just care about the demand end. You don't care about like the workers that have to do the deliveries. I'm like, bro, it's the same fucking it's related to the same fucking problem. Are you stupid? Like, it's just amazing that they try to like divvy that up and like pit it against each other. It's like, oh, you either care about the wages or you care about the inflation. Like, you fucking stupid. Like, this shit is a joke. I don't get it.
Not to mention that like most of the reason that inflation is a problem is because wages aren't inflating with the cost. So like you're just getting consumer end inflation and you're not actually getting any type of reciprocal change on wages or salary for employees and people who are going to be having to buy the stuff.
Exactly. No one would care about the inflation if the wages were keeping up with it. So it's all related to the same. Cost of living increases is like a relative problem. Cost of living has to do with how much you're making and how much things cost. So it's like it's a mix. It goes together in tandem or whatever. So like to pick it apart as one thing or the other is like, you know, they're making shit cost more and they're keeping people's wages down. Like that's the same. It's the same group of people doing both. Like, how do you not know that? Like,
bro, I mean, they did a study. You can look at at people's major portfolio earnings as far as corporations in the stock market. 2 out of 3 major corporations this year have seen larger profit margins than they saw in 2019, 2020 fiscal year. So if you look at that and then you say, oh, well, they're just raising rates of inflation to keep profit up, then obviously they're not, because they're already making plenty of profit. So what they're doing is they're using this inflation as a cover to be able to run prices up even higher beyond the actual rate of inflation. So they can act like they're going to try to keep pace with it. But really what they're doing is just using it as an excuse to jockey the price up, because they have such a large market share now, because with COVID and everything, they've been able to shut down all the small businesses, all the medium and small competition. So now we're left with these huge corporate giants, and they can say, oh, well, we actually have like 86% of the market share of this good. So, inflation is going to mean this is going to be 26% more expensive. Well, meanwhile, inflation's only gone up 22% or whatever. So they're also just outpacing this and causing a problem even more. The corporations are. And then, obviously they're not raising fucking wages along with that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's tied with that neocon thing of like, oh, people aren't working because they're lazy or whatever. It's like, yeah, people aren't working because the wages are shit. Like they're not coming, like people are just dropping out, and like there's this labor shortage or whatever. It's like, yeah, because the wages are garbage and they're requiring vaccine. What do you expect? People aren't going to work. Like, I mean, it's all tied to the same thing. But for some reason, people want to like, everybody's trying to parse these things out as separate things when it's kind of
when it's all sort of like interconnected, right? I mean, even like the supply chain stuff is connected to this too, right? Because when you think about the like the trucker aspect of it, like that's a big part of the mainstream media narrative has been that there's this huge shortage of truckers. But like, from the people that I've been like seeing, like there's been a lot of good posts from, I don't know if you guys know that dude, Ghost of Gord on Twitter, but he's sort of this he's like this libertarian kind of guy who's he hauls like propane or something like that. But he's been posting like a lot of good shit about the like trucker aspects of kind of these like labor shortages and the backed up ports and everything. And like what I'm kind of getting from these people is that like the idea of like a labor shortage, quote unquote, is like kind of like fake, right? Like it's like actually that they're just like really poorly paying jobs that they're trying to like really overwork you for doing. And so it's like, there's been we've seen all this sort of like weird theater with like we have the whole thing with the backed up ports going on right now. And like, like the Biden admin did this whole thing where they were like, okay, we're going to keep these ports open 24/7. But it's like they don't have workers to like service the ports, and they don't have drivers to like be driving all these hours that they're talking about. So it's like, it's just like purely theater, because like a lot of these truckers, I guess, like either just get like really bad wages, or they sort of get kind of conned into doing a sort of like lease to own sort of thing where they, I guess, become like technically like business owners or whatever, but they get probably conned into this sort of thing where they have to buy their own truck and shit. And it's just like, it seems like it's like,
I see a lot of billboards advertising that. They're like, become your own boss and make your own hauls.
And I mean, that seems like it, like this is like not my area, obviously, but like, it seems like that's a big scam, and that industry is sort of getting you to do that. It seems like a
gigification.
Like Uberification.
Right. Cause it's kind of like a workaround for sort of these management people and these owners that don't actually want to like probably give like benefits and stuff like that, or they just don't want to pay like a wage that people will actually like, really like work hard for.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Which is like, so you obviously like you can't fully like separate all these things, right? And I mean, I'm sure like any given area where there's like a labor shortage, like I'm sure there probably is like some similar dynamic going on where there probably are plenty of people that actually would take these jobs. It's just like they're paying like shit, right?
Yes, it's a misnomer. Exactly what you said. It's like, it's a misnomer. It's not, a labor shortage implies that there's people that don't want to work. It's like, yeah, there's people that want to work. But it's like, you're paying them shit. It's a fraction of a real job. You have to take there's a vax mandate for it. And the alternative is the government is trying to, ramp up this soft UBI thing and kind of transition to that. So it's like, what everything is there guiding you. This is the Great Reset thing. I mean, this is really what it is. It's like they're trying to make this a ghost economy. They're trying to get everybody like, they're trying to just end the labor market, traditional labor market relation, and just, charge whatever they want for it, and have people just sort of like on UBI, just print money and, just spend that money on consumption. And just like, this is what they want. They want everything untethered. They don't want any tethering to people. I mean, if they have to work or whatever, then they have the option to strike, like these labor strikes that are going on or whatever.
Right.
There's leverage against them. They want this pure UBI thing where without, the safety net, without like, Medicare, without healthcare or like educate. They want this untethered thing, but it's just printed money. Because and people think that's communist, like a lot of right wingers think that's communist or whatever. So, there's nothing communist about it really, because it's like it's libertarian. Like they get to detach from everything. They get to end all services and just cut you a check.
Yeah, I mean, it's like libertarians like love UBI because I feel like it gives this sort of like pretext under which you can sort of start hacking away at the existing like social like welfare programs that we have and shit like that. And it kind of like, it seems attractive to people on its face, like just getting handed like a wad of cash every month or whatever. But, it probably would not work out as well as it sounds.
Because if they can keep raising the prices arbitrarily and they can keep printing money arbitrarily.
Like we're seeing right now with the inflation.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And this is something I've been talking about for like before this even happened. It's like then then the person is just sort of like passing money along. You're just an in-between person. You're not even
right.
You're not engaged in the market. You're not tethered to it. You're not a worker. You're just somebody to take the money they give you and give it to this company and make it seem like there's an economy when there isn't. It's just the government printing money and subsidizing the private sector. That's all it is. And you're just sort of the in-between to make it seem like this is a real society when it's not. So, I mean, the people that call that communist, like, I get why they call it communist, right? But it's
right. Yeah, I mean, like,
it's sort of ridiculous. It's not communist. It's not. It's just not.
Yeah, it's like people like my like my MAGA uncle and shit will like call that communism, but like I get where they're coming from, right? It's obviously like not really correct, but like I understand the sentiment, I guess.
Yeah, I get why they say it, but it's like it's not serving the state, it's serving the private sector, and it's
right. Yeah, that's a crucial distinction, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing of where people start to say like Biden or Kamala are like communist or whatever, or Maoist or whatever.
Yeah. I definitely start to lose people when they sort of get into that territory, but.
I think that's beneficial, though, for both the right and the left to be able to paint Kamala and Biden as communists, right? Because then,
true,
you can have your like internet Marxists that are like, well, yeah, baby, we got Biden in office, and we're doing the thing, we're on the right path towards communism, we got our guy in, and then you can have people on the right that are saying, well, this shit's terrible because it's communism. And that's what the left is doing, not the fact that they're doing liberalism, just the other side of the coin that we want to do. They're doing communism, this other thing that's bad. Well, no, if you look at their policies are pretty strictly up the middle, fucking just capitalism and like corporate nepotism.
Right. Yeah, of course.
This left is literally calling him like, Maoist Biden, or like Sean McCarthy, whatever, like literally calling him like a base Biden, Maoist Biden, like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like,
it's such cope. It's like, they just like, it's kind of the same way that they'll talk around these like supply chain things and stuff like that. Like, it's like a lot of these people don't want to actually like admit that things are not like going super smoothly under the Biden presidency, and so it's like they just kind of cope their way through like they'll just talk around these issues or whatever. It's like the classic like dirtbag thing to do. Like everyone will be talking about an issue on a day, and like you'll see like the Chapo people, they're just like posting like animal clips or something, like just like something completely like totally detached from what like literally everyone is like talking about.
Sports ball, let's grill pill, or whatever.
Dilute the feed, bro. Yeah, you gotta dilute it, turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, and there were like neocon senators or whatever writing op-eds of like, people should be less political, and it's like, and then they'd criticize that. They'd be like, oh, this is like a ploy to like get people to check out while they run rampant or whatever, and then they do it. So it's all it's all what what's the date on the calendar? What time is it? Where's the wind blowing? Like that's all what all this is. It's all opportunism or whatever.
No, definitely.
Man, speaking of Biden, I was like, when I was reading some stuff about inflation, I was seeing that Biden's approval rating, which those are, notoriously important, those have fallen right down the drain recently, apparently.
Oh man, I don't know. What is it at lately?
Glorious.
It's like low 40s. We're looking like 41% or high 30s now.
Yeah, hitting 30s.
Nice.
We got let's go, Brandon, bro.
Let's go. I fucking love this shit. I love that it's because so much of this is just like it's all propped up and he's like the puppet government or whatever. Yeah, and that approval rating, it's inflated.
You know the number
now.
If they say it's 40, it's 20.
The number we're getting is already, it looks bad by itself, but it's already inflated.
Yeah, they can't even fake it that high into like the 50s or whatever. Like that's when you're like, that's the value of things like that, or like, you know, why I was telling people like to vote Trump, even though I knew it was going to be rigged or whatever. It's like there's value in seeing how far they'll go to.
I
to
definitely
make
think that's
legitimate.
true. Yeah, that's definitely true. Like everyone who did vote Trump, like I like much more so than people who voted Biden. Like they really saw what fucking like every step of how they rigged this shit, and it's like,
yeah, I mean, I would say how unpopular he is a sign of the rigging, of like, yo, like, you know, nobody wanted this fucking guy. He's not. I mean, everyone
kind of knew that from the beginning, right? Like everyone, like nobody, like I don't think I knew like a single person that was like actually like a self-identified Biden voter.
Of
like
course.
Through probably the entire. I mean, like a lot of them were probably just embarrassed to say it, but like, you know, for the whole like election cycle, like I think one of my uncles or something was like the only person I ever heard say that he was like, I'm really really pumped up to vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, my cousin said that, and he's retarded, but you know, he said he was happy about Biden or whatever. He believes like CNN and all this shit, like
yeah.
But even the leftists had to do the faux thing of like, oh, he's, you know, we don't like him, draw a clock, Joe, or whatever.
I was literally about to say, dude, I've been seeing so many people I know from school or whatever that I'm friends with on Facebook posting like memes that are like to the extent of basically saying, LOL, conservatives think that we love Biden and support everything he's doing. Meanwhile, they didn't know that we voted for him like begrudgingly or some shit. We hate everything he's doing. It's
they didn't know that
what you hate.
Cope.
You know?
They didn't know that I held my nose. I held my nose the entire time I filled out the ballot.
Oh my God. Yo, these people, man. Oh man. Because I seen them. They were like, you know, I voted for Hillary. I held my nose and voted for Hillary. I voted for, you know, and I'll never do it again. That was fucked up. And then they're fucking saying like, well, you go, guys, we got to stop fascism, you know, and they're doing it for Biden or whatever. And I'm just like, you know, you're going to say the same shit in a couple months. You're going to be like, oh, I regretfully voted Biden, but you know, I wasn't happy about it or whatever.
I held my nose when I used my ballot to wipe my ass after I took a shit, bro.
Yeah. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same exact thing. And like
they were holding their noses. We were chilling at home while they were doing that, not voting. Probably.
Yeah. I voted Trump. I went out of my way in a blue state. Completely, no point in doing it. There's really no point in doing it. I did it just to like upset them, which I drove. Yeah, they got really. I probably should have done it for that exact reason. But you know, I live in Massachusetts, so it's like whatever. I'm not. It doesn't matter. It does. I remember arguing with CH about it. CH is like, you know, none of this really matters. It's sort of pointless or whatever. And he was right. I mean, like obviously he's right. But I was like, I kind of, it was spite for one, and for two, like
it's the small things.
Yeah, it was spite, and I wasn't even gonna do it. I was chilling on the couch. I was probably high or whatever. I wasn't gonna do it. Yeah, like, you know what? Fuck these people. And I just kind of like out of spite just did it.
You said, but, shit, you know, I was high when I did that, bro.
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, I'm not liable or whatever.
I don't know what
I kind of wish that I had voted for Trump, even though I don't even vote, still haven't. I just kind of wish that I did, just for the small moral victory of just being like, God, dude, fuck these people. Like now looking back on it, it's just like, fuck, bro.
And also what I told people on this show, like before it happened, was like, you know, even if it'll be rigged, you're gonna make the rigging more obvious. You're gonna make it more obvious if there's this much support from. There were people voting for Trump in primaries where he wasn't running against anyone. If you like just enthusiasm alone, if you just do that, and he won the first night, like the night of, he was like, oh, he's got this.
Yeah,
if you do that enough, then when they have to flip it in the middle of the night, it's more obvious. It's more deliberate. Like you're making it more obvious. If it was narrow and they did that, it'll be a tough argument to be like, oh no, you know, it was rigged or whatever. People could say like, no, it was very close. It'd be harder to argue with it,
right?
But because it was so like clearly in his favor, and it just in the middle of the night, it just did a complete 180, and it took a week to undo his lead.
No, that's all normal. That's all normal.
Of course.
That happens. That happens every election. Yeah, but
right, I forget. Yeah,
there's always, you know, every 4 years a pipe burst, and they stop counting for a couple hours.
Right. Yeah. There's videos where people pick up boxes of ballots in the middle of the night under some table. That happens every election. I remember.
Or it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, it's good. So don't worry about it.
Yeah,
right.
And also, we need more of it.
Yeah.
But Biden's like shitty approval ratings, like, and what's really funny is the Kamala and Buttigieg thing now, where like their approval ratings are also dog shit, which was already the case,
of course,
during the primaries. And we were former Bernie people. I don't know if Sanrio was. But
definitely.
Yeah, and we all remember they had dog shit approval the whole time
since day one.
So they couldn't even compete in their own state. They couldn't even appeal to fucking leftists.
I mean, shit. Like Kamala get like literally like no delegates in the primary? Like
she got like 3% of vote, dude, and like the few states that she was still in the race for.
Like she did like so badly.
Yeah, and now like their approval is also dog shit. So like people are looking at all these media people are looking at Biden's shitty approval rating, and they're like, all right, maybe it's time to pull the plug now. Let's do the switch. And they're looking at for who's next, and they're like, oh fuck, everyone hates Kamala and Buttigieg too. Who the fuck do we have on the next string?
They're like backed into a corner now. It's like everyone fucking hates all these people. Like, what do we do?
Like, quick, bring out the Tims, bring out the shiny Tims, put them on Kamala, have her do a dance or something.
Well, it's just like all these like political and all these like talking about the interpalace, drama or whatever.
Oh yeah, dude.
I saw Kamala's people and Biden's people.
Yeah, they're beefing because she's like, he's misogynistic and not letting me have a chance or some shit like that, bro. You gotta know some shit like that's gonna happen. You could never, bro. Biden fucked up so bad letting some broad like that into his cabinet and his office.
Dude, you should not have let a woman be vice president. I've said that from the beginning.
Yeah,
that should not have happened.
That's a power dynamic, like glaring right off the bat, bro. She's gonna be like, "What? I'm not good enough to be your president." Like, dude, hell no, dude, get that out of here.
Naturally cunning and deceptive and all that. Bro. She called him a racist during the debates. She said he was racist.
She's like, everyone had to have memory hold that by now, but that was crazy.
Now they're walking around with the shirts that say my N-word and my cracker.
Yeah. Oh my god.
But I'm seeing in those articles about his fucking approval rate. So they're trying to put out reasoning, right? Like, obviously they gotta scramble and be like, well, it's actually really understandable for his approval rate to be so low right now. And what they're saying, and Jen Psaki was saying, is that in the administration's view, there's a certain minority of people that are resisting vaccination and therefore spoiling recovery for the rest of the nation, which is contributing to rising anxiety across the nation, which is then leading into economic stagnation and fear of return to the economy. And so essentially they're viewing vaccination mandates as critical in order to reopen the economy and get things going again. And they're blaming inflation and supply chain shortages and everything on the pesky unvaccinated people. So now it's no longer just a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's like a economic crash of the unvaccinated as well.
a great incoming Great Depression of the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
No, exactly. It's their catch-all for everything now. And I'm less pilled on like all the side effects of the vaccine or whatever, like the death or whatever. Yeah. But like, obviously, Slav's friend had one of those heart issues from the vax. You know what I mean? Like, it's obviously real.
Oh, I didn't know that actually.
Now they're saying the Omna variant, one of the symptoms is the heart conditions that the vaccine causes or whatever.
Oh, dude, the Omicron, whatever bullshit is just everything that the vaccine just doesn't handle. It's just normal COVID, but like they're just trying to wrap their brain around the fact that they put out some shit product and made everyone get it. So they're like, oh no, actually it's new COVID, and that's why the vaccine's dog shit. And it's like, nah, bro, this vaccine's dog shit from the jump.
It's like this news cycle we're in right now about the like Omicron variant or whatever. Like, I feel like we've had this like 10 times already. Like, they keep doing this, right? Like, it's like they'll pick like a random, because there's obviously like hundreds of fucking like virus. I'm not a scientist or anything, but like they mutate, right?
I think they've probably mutated like thousands of times.
But like, I feel like
that's what viruses do.
I feel like what's like they just pick out these random mutations and then they just decide to like run like a couple pieces on it and freak everyone out. And then like a week later it'll be like, oh, it's actually it's more contagious but it's less lethal.
Yes.
And then everyone just like forgets about it.
That's what happened this time around. And the funniest thing about this one, okay, so we know it now as Omicron or whatever the fuck it is. But it was originally, if you remember, like a week ago, we were seeing a bunch of stuff pop out about new COVID strain.
Yeah, the new variant.
Like the new and new metal and shit like that. But no, new COVID. And so they were running with that. And they were like,
same thing that happened with the Delta variant, because the Delta variant was originally, it was like the India variant or something like that. Like I think it had originated in India. And then all of a sudden it just got this like rebrand as like the Delta variant, and it just like a whole new news cycle started up over it. It was kind of insane.
This Omicron one, they're like, all right, this is the new variant. It's out of South Africa. It's like filled with African genes and shit, and we're fucked.
The white ones, but the white ones, the white South African.
That's only South African
Afrikaner genes. But they're like, this shit's bad. It's like nightmare, 23 mutations, like Dr. Pepper or some shit. And then they're like, this shit's terrible. And then like, I don't see anything about the new variant for like a day, and I start seeing shit about Omicron, and I'm like, whoa. We got two people battling out. We got two variants duking it out.
It's like, no way they just rolled out another one.
Yeah, no, it just turns out this is the same exact one. But the news actually jumped the gun on their panic machine. And so they ran before even talking to the WHO or anything. And the WHO made a concerted effort to jump over new, because they didn't want to get to the next Greek letter, which is Z, G, X, I. They're trying to avoid the Xi strain because they don't want to correlate it with Xi Jinping.
It'll lose their pockets.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro.
It'll be too symbolic if the Xi strain just rips across the United States.
It makes Trump prophetic, bro. The China flu comes into like scientific relevance, dude.
Asian hate just went through the roof.
Everyone that called him racist for calling it the China flu, so they'll be seeking retribution.
Yeah. So they just skip right over it. It's funny as fuck, dude.
Yeah, that's bad funny. Oh, it's not very scientific.
No.
But what the fuck happened to Lambda? What happened? I was waiting for that to drop.
Don't worry about Lambda, bro. That shit was they handled it.
That one was
got that shit, bro.
Okay. Was there ever a beta variant?
There was.
Oh,
They like moved right past it though, because they were afraid people were gonna call COVID beta, and they can't have that.
They knew. They knew FedPost was going to be all over it. They were like, we can't do this.
Yeah. Just waiting in the winds. The memes were already
like
pressed
these motherfuckers have been waiting for the beta variant for months.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Sigma.
Yeah.
That too. Let's drop it. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch it right off the bat, bro.
Right? Yeah, I'm going to the Sigma like COVID party.
Yeah.
I got Sigma antibodies already, bro. That's just what being a Sigma male's about.
Yeah.
That's what they mean by natural immunity, right? It's just being a Sigma male.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is, it's one of, it's like I was watching, it's Thanksgiving and I'm like with family and we're like watching cable TV for the first
National
time like a year or whatever. Yeah, and this fucking, Ari Melber, whatever the fuck on, MSNBC saying like, how do we deal with COVID fatigue? And people just being like kind of tired of this shit. People just being like, oh, wait, it's going to end if we all take this booster, but they've heard this before. So what do we say to them? And they're just like workshopping this shit in real time because the only people that watch this shit are fucking libs.
Yeah,
like,
or other media people.
Yeah, exactly. It's all insular, so they're allowed to like workshop their psyops and their PR.
The Rachel Maddow show is like the lib group chat.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. No, it really
literally
is.
Yeah.
And they're doing this out of the open because like no normal fucking human being is watching this shit. But I'm just saying just to see what the fuck they're up to or whatever. And it's like they're just like, how do we tell people like this will end or whatever? And they just know. They know that everybody's tired of this shit. Like, I don't know who still believes it now. But, like, they know. And, how many times are we going to do this? I mean, there's going to be, like, 20 boosters probably. So
right. I mean, it's like the more and more this goes on, like, it's only the most neurotic people are going to be, like, taking it seriously. Like, I can't imagine they'll be able to fucking keep the charade up forever.
No, but that's what goes back to what you guys were saying about the unvaxxed being blamed for the economy or whatever. It's like unvaxxed is just deplorables, and they're going to blame this variant on the deplorables, the unvaxxed, and they're going to blame the crash, the supply chain, labor shortage, everything is just going to be because of the unvaxxed, whatever.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the top 5 states in the United States with the highest COVID rates right now actually also have some of the highest vaccination rates in the country.
I just saw that. I think it's like Vermont, Rhode Island, and like Massachusetts and Connecticut. Maybe one other, Maine or something.
Brian, from Israel to New Zealand or to fucking Iceland, the data shows time and time again, the more vaccinations there are, the more infections there are, because they're creating these fucking like asymptomatic, well, mutations too, but also asymptomatic carriers, because they're getting the vaccine, they're getting the COVID as well, but they're not actually feeling the COVID because the vaccine's like, making them have a different response to it than normally. So they're still carrying it anyways. So they're just like making little walking petri dishes to make more new variants that they can then use to scare people to put more masks on or get more shots or whatever the hell, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then like you hear about places like Florida, like, all the libs were freaking out about Florida for like months and say like like they were calling it like Death Santis is Florida or whatever.
Yeah, everyone in the South is dead right now.
Yeah, total. They've just all been wiped out. But yeah, if you like look at the Florida like case numbers or whatever, like they're literally like, I just looked at them earlier today, like they're the lowest they've been since like June 2020.
Yep.
Like just nobody's getting COVID in fucking Florida right now. It's like
Florida and
it's
Texas
insane that's
just
happening.
Like fine.
Yeah, in all these places that like, we've been told are like just the worst hotspots for COVID or whatever, just because, they're like red states and have so many unvaccinated people or whatever. But it's like, it's not like the reality is like not aligning with this like at all.
Well, a lot of those places are also places like you're saying that aren't that vaccinated. So when people are getting the vaccine or not the vaccine, when they're getting COVID in the first place, if they're unvaccinated, their body's having a natural immune response to it. And so it's creating antibodies. It's going through the immunity cycle that your body always goes through when you encounter any type of pathogen, any type of virus. And so you're creating a certain resiliency in that. So that resiliency is going to be a lot more effective than just having some like 6-month short acting resiliency that you're going to need to reboost on. That's actually keeping you in your natural body from doing its like original natural immune operations that it should be doing, because no, I've got these like fake spike proteins in me now and it's kicking this thing out of me. So I don't need to have a normal immune response. Meanwhile, you're not actually generating antibodies and you're not actually having any type of fortification go on that you would be getting if you weren't vaccinated up with this.
Yeah,
right.
I think the vax is probably some saltwater shot. I don't think there's anything in there. Like I don't think it's doing anything to boost anybody's fucking immunity or whatever. But like, probably maybe even make it worse.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it seems like
true.
I haven't looked into it like super closely, but it seems like the booster shots are not really like based on any like data or anything. It's like it seems like they kind of just were like, well, I guess if you put more of the vaccine in, it'll probably like boost your response a little bit. Like it seems like it was kind of phoned in. Like it seems like there wasn't any like hard evidence that like went into this decision or anything like that.
No, that's the case with Moderna. That's why you saw a bunch of countries over the past like month, a bunch of countries put Moderna boosters on indefinite hold because they actually hadn't done a study into whether or not Moderna boosters could be reapplicated. And if Moderna, because what the booster is, what they're doing is just taking the original vaccine and they're just giving it to you again. And so with the Moderna one, they hadn't actually done any studies to see if this was something that could be re-administered and done over like the course of a long time. And I think that in the US, they did an emergency panel with the FDA and the CDC and, whatever other sicko fucking lizards they can find. And they're like, all right, y'all, this is safe. Don't even fucking worry about it. But other countries and other like science and doctors are like, whoa. You're telling me we don't have any studies on this at all? We only did studies for a single injection for short term. So what the fuck is going on here? And it's the same thing with like no long-term studies on any of the vaccines. I mean, obviously it's only been 1.5 years since they've been in production. So, I mean, I don't know. They're just front running this shit so like lackadaisically. They're just like, fucking whatever. We're putting this shit out. Everyone's going to need to get it. We've already paid for it. You motherfuckers are going to make us look stupid if you don't get vaccinated. So you better do it.
Yeah. It really is crazy how like we've been, I think like really effectively like gaslit or whatever to like sort of against the idea that the vaccine is like experimental or whatever. But like I feel like if you talk to like most people, like it's most people kind of recognize that it's pretty unheard of to like mandate a vaccine that's still like it's still in like the 4th phase of the clinical trials, right? Like the long-term effects phase. Like as far, I mean, I could be wrong about this, but like I don't think there's any other vaccines that are like have ever been mandated when it's still like literally in like the final phase of testing, right?
Well, so, like, it only lasts 6 months. The flu lasts a year. The flu shot lasts a year at least.
And that's not a vaccination. That's an immunization. They won't even call it a vaccination because it's not. They're literally changing the operative definition of vaccination before our eyes and then just having people go along with it like it's fucking.
No, literally. Literally,
Right,
it's not even a joke. Literally, like
because wasn't the like I guess originally it would have been like a therapeutic or whatever. I guess would have been technically what the vaccine was considered by like the CDC definitions or whatever.
Yeah,
just because of the way. Yeah, I guess it doesn't stop like transmission really and stuff like that.
It's more like a treatment than it is a cure or a
right
measure.
Which is again like it's like why like it goes to show that like most of the benefit is just only in the person that gets it, right? To the extent that it even works. Like so like it's obvious. It's I think most people like kind of realize that like I'm not the libs, I should say, but most people, I think most normal people kind of tend to realize that I think the anti-vax people are sort of just being like they're just a useful scapegoat, right?
Yeah, definitely. I had some conversations. I was visiting with my parents over the holidays, and my dad is vaccinated, and he was like telling me, he's like, I'm not actually going to get another booster. And we were talking about it, and I was telling him, why I'm not vaccinated. And he was like, yeah, I totally understand that. And it was just like, I don't know. He was just he's pretty baseline, a political person, and he kind of gets informed by whatever his friends are saying on Facebook or on whatever he picks up on the local news. And even he's saying like, oh no, this is fucking ridiculous how they're like putting the weight of this onto vaccinated people. And even he's saying, I don't really know how I feel about the vaccine that I ended up getting. I think he got Moderna, and he was worried because he was himself calling it like experimental gene therapy. Like literally everyone knows that that's what it is, but you've just been conned into saying like, well, if you hear the word gene therapy, then they're like a Roganite fascist, esoteric, type of evil person.
Hitlerist, Roganist.
Yeah. It's like, no, I'm actually just going based upon like the real classification of what this medication is.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, my family, I saw them for Thanksgiving, and I told them I voted Trump, and they didn't like that. And then I told them,
laying the dick up on the table real quick, like,
and I told them fucking
just laying it all out right away.
Yeah, I told them that the vax bullshit is never ending, and it's not real. Like the COVID isn't real or whatever.
Yeah.
And they completely disagree with that. So it's like people do believe it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it depends. Like they're white collars. So some of them are white collars, some of them are not. But like they do believe. Like some of them do believe it or whatever. I guess
it depends on regionality, like where you're at, and also industry of what you do and what type of people you're surrounded with, what your media consumption.
Imagining CRK pulling up to his Thanksgiving and just being like, "Yeah, it's a lib pandemic. The lockdowns, the climate lockdowns are coming."
Just
rolling out all the predictions,
foaming at the mouth.
Like, you just had like a printout.
I'm taking my meds too. I'm not taking them anymore. Fuck that.
You got a printout of your predictions tweet, and you're just pointing at it.
Look at this. Yeah. I mean, well, and the other thing too is like with the vaccines or whatever, like what you guys are getting at too, like you know, I am a PhD, I am a medical expert, unlike my colleagues here, and like like the super bacteria or whatever, like if you fucking keep giving antibiotics, people have no fucking immune system, and then you make worse bacteria. I mean, to whatever degree the virus is a real thing, which I mean, it's out there, obviously. I'm sure it's like mutating and actually existing, whatever. The more you do this shit, you're making it more adaptable. You're making it move around or whatever. But, if it's more contagious, I think the rule of thumb is it's less deadly or whatever. Nobody even talks about this anymore.
Yeah, that's always what I've like again, like I really am like not science brained at all. But like that's always how I've understood it, right? Is that these things tend to mutate in a way that they'll spread more, but they get sort of like weaker and weaker. So like I mean, yeah, like that might be what we see, right? Like eventually I think it's probably just, I mean, if it's not like already, right, that like it might just sort of mutate itself into like basically like a common cold.
Oh dude, of course.
But yeah, and I saw one of those experts or whatever saying it's basically going to be like a common cold. They just say it now.
They do.
Again, none of this like nobody cares about the virus anymore. None of the libs care anymore. Like they say that, but they don't mean it. They're partying, like the mayor of San Francisco and all these libs. They're having parties. Yeah. My family that says that it's serious, they're fucking meeting together in close quarters, 30 people, whatever. Nobody cares anymore. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And they didn't care a year ago, whatever. But like they don't care anymore. It's all just like for show or whatever. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like nobody really gives a fuck about this anymore.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, it seems like the mandate, the vax mandate seems like it's kind of like failing a little bit. I'm not totally sure what the like status of it is at the current moment. Like I feel like it kind of got like pushed back or something like that. And it seems like it's not really working. I think at some point they might have quietly carved out an exception for like the truckers. Because I think like the president of the like the what is it the committee on like transportation and infrastructure or whatever, like he put out some tweet that was like said that like literally like 37% of truckers or something like that were like planning on quitting because of the mandate. Which like obviously like we're hearing so much about these like trucker like labor shortages and shit already, like that would obviously like the fucking supply chain would like collapse or some shit, like it would be like catastrophic. But like I've heard like a couple mixed things about the like status of it for I guess people that work at like 100 employee businesses or whatever.
Yeah, I think they came out real strong on that, and they were like, everyone's going to get vaccinated. Fuck all of y'all. Y'all better get this shit or else you're not working. And then they were like, all right, we're going to need to actually sit down and like put this in the law. So they went with like OSHA, and I think it was like probably 3 weeks ago now, maybe a couple weeks ago, that they actually released these standards. And one of the main takeaways that I saw was that they were admitting OSHA doesn't have the funding, the staff, or the capabilities to actually check in routinely on any type of businesses, any corporations, or any type of employers that have the qualifications to meet this vaccine mandate. And so they're going to be, quote unquote, relying heavily on whistleblowers, which is what they like to like call snitches now. They're like, whistleblower sounds a little bit better. So they're like,
the word whistleblower is doing a lot of work.
Yeah, that's doing a lot of heavy lifting these days. But they apparently want coworkers they're counting on vaccinated individuals that are in the workplace to rat out their coworkers for being unvaccinated, and they're counting on them to rat out their employers if they refuse to fire their unvaccinated coworkers. So they're literally like trying to destroy solidarity right now in like real time.
Yeah, it's like the people calling the FBI on their grandmother for involvement in
bro.
Or whatever. It's just
I was about to say, you need to be careful at Thanksgiving, bro. You know?
Oh no, they're not gonna. No, my family, they're from a third world. They're immigrants, so like they view like family as like, they actually care about that shit. You know.
Let you see, okay.
But like that's a big difference. I mean, these lib families or whatever, like American families or whatever, like that are more closer to like, you know, being libified or whatever, they will do that, which is unheard of everywhere else in the world. It's completely unheard of to rat out.
I mean, it basically,
if your family kills someone, most people in the world, especially from like poorer parts of the world, would be like, yeah, I will lie for my cousin, my brother, whatever. I don't give a fuck.
I'm not telling nobody.
More than anything. Yeah, exactly. But
bro,
like,
if one of y'all killed somebody, I wouldn't tell anyone. I don't even really know y'all like that.
For real? Yo,
yeah,
good
dude.
Looking.
That's how I roll.
That's very good to know.
That's just the way to be. Yeah, I mean, you can't be snitching. What like what?
Bro. Whistleblowers get stitches, bro.
They're trying to mobilize the libs to get them to snitch. That's like so insane. They're empowering these people.
They're born to do it.
They're probably doing it for free already.
Yeah. They love doing that. I mean, you know, especially if like, you know, I mean, this is a right wing argument, but like, yeah, if family or whatever is inherently like fascist or whatever. Then, you know, it's like what Slav says. I mean, he would say this is like, you know, loyalty to your family is like a Nazi belief or whatever. So, you know, if you put them over the law or what CNN tells you or whatever, then you're a fascist. So
yeah, family cannot come before state ideology. There must be no other false idols.
Yeah. Even though that's completely normie, basic human shit. But then if you're like, oh no, you know, I'm going to side with the state or whatever, then you're a good person. Then you're like a upstanding citizen or whatever.
Right.
I guess some people believe.
I've never in my life have I understood the like leftist line on like the family stuff, like the way they talk about like abolishing the family and shit. Like none of that stuff has ever made any sense to me.
I think it's just like really out of context and misunderstanding what they purport to be the theory that they go by. Because in Marx and Engels talk about like the historical role of the family as a device for accumulating capital. Essentially, that's kind of like the way as the family developed, and then like tribes and states and stuff like that go on from there. And so I think people read that and they're like, oh, family bad, we need to get rid of that. Like I don't think that it's any type of actual, I don't think there's any logic behind it. It's just people having reactionary stances on bullshit that they don't even understand they half read.
Well, yeah, because it's like the way I've always understood it is that like neoliberalism is kind of already like eroding like, you know, the importance of family. And it's like, I think the way some of these people are talking about it, like it seems like they just want to like kind of like accelerate that or something like that.
Yeah,
just, like,
a lot of the Marxist
kind of
critique is like this kind of stuff is already happening, right? And it's not saying, oh, this is a good thing, or that we need to do this, or that we need to pour fuel on this fire. It's saying like, oh, well, do you see all these institutions that we actually find strength and value in? Do you see these things that previously were boundaried off from any type of commodification? Well, now through our very degenerated system that we're living in now, it's being hollowed out in such a way that the value that we used to get out of those things is no longer even so much there, because, you know, the thing that we're seeing, I remember seeing it a lot like last month, where it was a big thing on Twitter of people talking about how poor people will kick their family out of the house at 18, but rich people never do that. Like you never see a rich person saying like, you know, if my son doesn't get a job as a Fortune 500 CEO by the time he's 18, he's on the fucking streets, you know? You never see that. But a lot of poor families will be like, well, you're a freeloading kid now, and they'll kick him out. And essentially the utility there of the family is like being kind of squandered in a way where a lot of like what strength you can get out of family is that extra kind of comfort and that extra layer of like, if you're good, I'm good kind of thing, which is like what a good relationship should be, a good friendship. But, you know, when it's family, it's a lot more tangible.
Yeah. I mean, my family, like, I don't feel any obligation to my family because of blood alone. I don't believe that. I feel obligation to them because they've been good to me. So that's how I feel. And like, there's people who, my like they're immigrants or whatever. Like, there's a lot of people who come into the family who are my family that are not related by blood. It's just like a sort of thing of like, oh, you're from this country too. You're here. You're like struggling. Come hang out with us, and we'll take care of you. Like what you're saying, like the solidarity thing, like forms off of that alone. So it's a survival thing. Obviously, that's what it's all based on.
And I think kind of the goal of like, I think what a proper Marxist approach would be, right, is that not that, oh, we want to continue to pour fire on destroying the family and this, that, and the other because it's evil, but instead say instead, well, look, the family is being hollowed out in ways that are kind of like almost irreparable in some ways, kind of like some of these other institutions are, like the church and these things that people want to re-glorify and bring back into prominence. These things are kind of falling out of the way because they lived through their historical use and relevance, and then capital has then therefore sunk its jaws into it and used it as a vehicle to accumulate itself even faster, and then it's going to spit it out to the side. So what we should be looking is saying that understanding that Sierra K just mentioned about how his family has other people in it that aren't actually his blood, but they're other immigrants in the same class position that live in the same area as them, that have then been embraced as family. That is what I believe a vision, like a Marxist vision of family, should look like going forward. Not that we need to destroy the nuclear family or that we need to destroy blood family or anything, but the fact that we need to maybe broaden our view of family to be one that is more along class lines and local lines, one of community and that sort of thing, because that's what the utility is. And then it's a little bit more communalistic in nature in that way. I think that's ultimately like a more articulated and more like moral Marxist approach on the family question.
And that critique definitely like rings true. It's just like, you know, the way that those sort of ideas are represented online is it gets pretty insane pretty quickly, and you know, not nearly as nuanced as like what you were just saying.
Yeah. Oh no, they get caricaturized very quickly.
Yeah,
and it gets hyper focused on like this model of the nuclear family, like whether that's good or bad or that should be defended. When really it's more nebulous than that. Like what we're talking about. Like it there's people that like, oh, like a good neighbor that like helps you out, like is there for you or whatever. People be like, you're like a brother to me. You're like, you know, and it's not blood. That's like a common thing. And it's like sort of like a foundation of like, oh, I'm invested in your life and you're invested in mine. And maybe we don't live in the best conditions and we sort of need that sort of required thing. And, you know, obviously what they want is everybody alienated and sort of detached from each other. Again, I don't think they're sitting up at night thinking, how do we get rid of the nuclear family? I don't believe that.
Right. Yeah. No,
they just want to alienate people from each other. And this is one of the consequences of it. And this is what happens. Like,
I think that's definitely true.
I don't even know that it's even altogether that conscious that they want to alienate people from each other, as so much as it's like that is just what is in their material interest. And so when they pursue their material interest, that is the ended result.
That's a necessary consequence of it.
Yep, and just being like consumer minded or hedonistic. I mean, if you're a drug addict, this is the hyper extreme of someone who's very like individualist or consumer mindset or whatever that they want you to be in like a neo-lib capitalist society, whatever. You don't have family. Like you can't maintain family ties or whatever. You're stealing from your family. You're fucking them over. They can't trust you, whatever. You're not there's nothing tethering you to people because your needs and your like desires come over that. So they supersede that. So that's part of the whole thing is like if you become a good subject, you're just like if you're a good consumer brain person, then family, naturally is going to become a secondary thing. And, and these kids, again, if we're just talking about the psychology of like leftists or just bully kids or whatever, the whole fuck you dad thing, that's a big chunk of it.
Oh, yeah,
if we're just talking about pathology. I don't like my dad because of whatever. Shit, I don't like my dad. That's me personally speaking. And like, I don't let that shit doesn't form my fucking politics. That's fucking weird. Like, that's how these people think. Like, they're just like, oh, like that's their whole basis of how they operate. It's just like, oh, fuck you, dad. So I'm gonna dye my hair purple and fucking just become
an anarchist or whatever. Yeah.
I'm going to make myself look unrecognizable and then say that the name that you gave me out of your loving heart when I was a baby is now my dead name and get mad at you if you use it and threaten to call like child services or something.
Yeah, man. See, that's the thing. That's like people being, I believe most people are apolitical, and you got to think like even these people that sound very political, like this blue hair that you're talking about in this situation, they're still apolitical in a sense. It's not really political. They're sort of just diffusing their like personal relationships with their family or trauma or whatever and turning it like it's deflected like into politics, but it's not really political.
The language with which these things are expressed like is like politics, right? Like it's
exactly. But we'll get you back on maybe like on a live or another episode or whatever. But
that sounds good to me, fellas.
It was good to talk to you, and good thing you sound sane. You sound like you touch grass.
Man, I hope
every now and then.
You had a good Thanksgiving with your family, the beautiful family you posted.
I appreciate it, fellas. I had a good time. Thanks for bringing me on. Appreciate it,
man.
Absolutely. And those all the people mad at you, whatever, they're not real. They're bots.
Yeah, they're fake.
And it's a good sign of what you're poking at, obviously. Congrats on all that.
Hell yeah.
What's going on, man?
Thanks, guys.
All right, that was part 1 of our episode. If you'd like to listen to part 2, you can find that at patreon.com/fedpost. Thanks for listening.